Can you guys hear me? Is the microphone? Okay. I have a lot of skills, but audiovisual stuff is not one of them. Thank you so much. Oh, that was a mouthful. That made me sound kind of fancy and professional. All right, let me get my life together here. How are you guys doing this morning? Or this afternoon? It's afternoon now. Thank you, Kate, for having me up here. Yeah, I just want to open by saying the stuff you guys are doing here is really important. Kate is like the Virginia version of what I'm trying to do in Texas. There's not a lot of us willing to really be open with our stories, and it's kind of a vulnerable topic for a lot of people, and it was for me for a long time too. But it's really important work you guys are doing, and I just really appreciate the opportunity to come and speak a little bit about what my experience has been and see what we can continue doing in the future. Let me also first say, I got in yesterday, I flew into Dulles, and I spent the day driving down Shenandoah, like obsessed with Virginia, you guys. Like, this state is so beautiful. I had been there just on the outskirts of DC, but I love national parks, I love the outdoors. Almost hit a deer about half a mile in, so drove real slow. Got a cute Airbnb down here. I just love this area. And I'm from Texas, born and raised. I went to college in LA for a few years and lived in Italy for a year. And other than that, I've been in Texas. And I'm a Texas girl through and through, but like our one flex is that we can pretty much fly to anywhere in the world nonstop from Dallas. But otherwise, there's really nothing really pretty about Texas. So I just want to say I really love it up here. I don't know that I want to go home tomorrow. I might, well, yeah. If I can get this Airbnb, and I'll be set. You guys are doing cool stuff, though. I love a good quote. Owning our story and loving ourselves through that process is the bravest thing we'll ever do. I love Brené Brown. She's a very truthful speaker, storyteller, as she calls herself. And that quote means a lot to me because it took me a long time to get there, years. But it really is. It's the bravest thing that I ever did was get to a point where I wasn't ashamed of my past anymore. And it opened up a lot of doors to bring hope to a lot of people. Which in my recovery world, you guys are going to hear me referencing like a 12-step model or groups or fellowships. I practice the anonymity of what my recovery group is, but you'll hear me referencing things from that. Just know that that's my own personal experience. There's many different avenues to get into recovery, and I support all of them if it works for you. So just a little disclaimer on that. But so let's see if I can do this quicker. Yeah, perfect. So what's the point of me coming here today? What are we going to talk about? I am going to share a little bit of my lived experience. That's what we call basically the fact that, I've been through this, the stuff that I advocate for today. And I went through it in a time where it was not really cool to do that, and there weren't near as many resources as there are today. We're going to very briefly, don't freak out, we're going to very briefly talk about the disease model of addiction. And there's an important reason for that. It's because I didn't learn about it in nursing school. I graduated in 2003 the first time from nursing school. Didn't have one single hour of anything dealing with substance use, addiction. Didn't grow up around it. We'll get to that part. So we'll talk about that. Briefly discuss the stigma towards substance use disorders and mental health, which is still very much alive and well. But we've come a long way. We have a long way to go. And then we'll talk about some tangible actions to dismantle stigma. I don't know if y'all know who Dr. Adams is. He was the Surgeon General. Back in 2018, he spoke at the George Washington University School of Nursing, and he made this quote: "Stigma is the nation's #1 killer. As members of the most trusted profession, nurses can help alleviate that stigma and encourage patients to seek recovery. There is nothing more powerful than a nurse armed with the correct information." This is important because this is one of the reasons why nurses have to typically get in a lot of trouble before they're willing to ask for help. Because we are the most trusted profession. We have been for like decades, I think. I don't know how long, but people don't want to, dishonor that. I know that I didn't. So, and then never be a prisoner of your past. It was just a lesson, not a life sentence. And that goes for anything, not just addiction, not just, substance use disorders, but I hope you guys kind of take that to heart. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. Okay. So just a little bit about me. It actually makes me really uncomfortable to have anybody talk about things I've done, recognitions, awards. But I will also preface by saying it means a lot more now because I see it as a win for recovery. So I'm very open with my story. Everybody at my job knows that I'm in recovery. But when I achieve things or when I gain things, I don't see it. I don't like the attention on me. What I do like is them seeing somebody that's in recovery doing those things. Like, we are not unintelligent people. We are not lazy, undriven people. We have perseverance, we have resilience, we have innovative ideas. We have a lot to offer. But when you're in the thick of addiction, active addiction, it destroys you. Like, you think you're just like the lowest of the low. And so you forget those things. So I don't know. I just think it's really cool, to put a spotlight on recovery and all of these things. So I am board certified in addiction medicine. Believe it or not, Texas is huge. Y'all know this. 43 of us in the whole state are certified in addiction medicine. And then ER stuff. So I've been basically an ER nurse for 22 years off and on. I have worked inpatient psych. I work in addiction medicine now. I'm also an NP student, about a third of the way through my program. I was complaining about it when I was driving over here. Same thing as her. I feel like I've been given a gift with where I'm at and my ability to be open with my story. I have a way to connect with people that you cannot teach in a classroom. When I look at a patient and tell them I've been where you're at, I've been to detox, I've been to treatment more than once, I've left my kids for 30 days, 40 days to go get help. Like, I really have done those things. So what are you gonna say to me? Like, what excuse are you gonna have, you know? So there is something different. I remember when I went to treatment, I latched onto anybody that would talk to me that was in recovery. Loved the counselors. Mine was not in recovery himself. He was still great. But I was talking to the EVS person. I was talking to the dietary person. If they had experienced what I had experienced, that's who I wanted to talk to, because I got it. And I was like almost 15 years as an ER nurse before I started struggling, and I'll get to that in a second. But did not understand it, man. Like, used to pass so much judgment on people. I'll get to more of that in a second. But those are the colleges I've went to. I should have gone to medical school is pretty much the moral of that story. I got a degree in something other than nursing, moved back to Texas with a newborn baby as a single mom, started LVN school, did LVN to ADN to BSN to MBA, and now in my nurse practitioner program. And the only reason that I did the MBA, and I'm not sure this was the healthiest decision, is because they wouldn't let me in NP school while I was in monitoring by the Board of Nursing. So it was kind of like I'll just get another degree, kind of thing. So it was useful, but so anyway, I just think it's really important for them to see us doing things and see what we're capable of. I have been in recovery since April 3rd, 2020. If you do the math on that, that's the month that the world shut down. So that was a fun time to get sober. I didn't have in-person meetings for the first 6 months that I was sober. I was doing a lot of Zoom. So very proud of that fact, but I will also say I don't really care how much time someone has. I care more about substance. I care more about quality. Sometimes the people that I meet that are the most on fire for this thing are 6 months sober. The ones that are 20 are just stagnant and whatever. So, okay, let's talk about, I love a statistic. I'm gonna share some statistics with y'all today. So Texas, we have 254 counties in that big state. Takes about 13 hours to drive all the way across in either direction. 246 of them are considered healthcare shortage areas, including my county that I live in, which is a suburb of Dallas-Fort Worth. This is for mental health care providers. 51st on the list. I guess they include Puerto Rico. I didn't even look to see what territory is in there, but we are 51st in mental health. Texas is. That's sad. Virginia, you guys have 133 counties, I believe. 93 are considered you're doing a little better than us. And I also was reading about you guys have independent cities. I don't know what that means. I'm going to leave that one alone. But so if that doesn't look right in some type of way with counties and stuff, then forgive me. But so yeah, just kind of some fun statistics. And we're up here. I live about right there. But that's a big problem in Texas. There's one of the social determinants of health is access to care, and we're not doing well at that. So a long way to go. With that, let me get to we're going to talk a little bit about my story here. So my husband, who's also in recovery, I'll talk about him in a second too, but he always says that as a child, I won the cortical lottery. Has anyone ever heard that term? Yeah? No, maybe? So what that means is, I was a very well-adjusted kid. Like, I can't find really anything from my past to really blame my struggles on. I did grow up in Dallas-Fort Worth. I had a father that he passed away and never even tasted alcohol at his time of death. Like, my family didn't drink, they didn't use drugs, there was no mental health issues that I was aware of. And at my school, I mean, I just wasn't around, I was not exposed in any type of way to substance abuse, to recovery, to any 12-step model, anything like that. I was completely clueless. And when I went to school, as I said, I literally didn't have a single hour. I think they're doing a lot better job today at educating and having curriculum that supports that. I know that because nurses come through my home group meeting for my recovery fellowship, and they also come to my nurse recovery support group that I lead in Texas. And I love that because I have the opportunity to tell them, you will encounter this. I don't care what area of nursing that you're going into, you will encounter this. And probably you'll encounter colleagues that will struggle at some point too, that were caught diverting or just have restrictions because of what they've done. So it's really, really important. And I don't think that there's many people out there that haven't been touched by addiction in some type of way. A friend, family member. And there's a lot of stigma surrounding it. There's a lot of implicit bias from our own personal experiences that we bring into this. But I went in just completely clueless. I remember when I graduated nursing school, when I graduated with my RN, I went through a critical care residency down at Parkland, which is our level 1 trauma hospital in Dallas. It's where JFK died a long time ago. But we spent 6 months there, rotating through the ICUs and the ER and learning how to be a critical care nurse. And I remember my second week there, I just was really ticked off at the drug-seeking population, as I called them, and how I was being treated and the names that person called me, that when they came in drunk, and I was so offended. Like, don't they know I'm trying to help them? And I mean, I was so naive going into this deal. Have a whole different perspective on that today, but the ER will give you an implicit bias real quick. And if you don't have it yourself that you're developing up here, you'll get it from listening to other people that work in the ER. So I just really appreciate the fact that you guys are even learning about this stuff, because it's not something that I had access to at all at that time. And I'm grateful I do now, but I wish I had had this 20 years ago. So I was not a party kid. I was not somebody that used drugs, in high school, even in college. I was very academically driven, very ambitious, had goals, wanted to meet them. Had a baby my senior year in California in college, and that wasn't planned, but still pushed through that situation. And oh my God, she's turning 23 next month. She just graduated from Baylor. I know, I feel so old, but it's crazy. I feel like we kind of grew up together. But so my issues did not start until I was 33, 34. So at this time, I had been a nurse for a while in the ER. I was married to a surgeon, an orthopedic surgeon that worked at my hospital. Believe it or not, we had 6 kids combined. So I had 3 children that were my stepchildren that we had full custody of. And then I had my oldest daughter. I had my son through in vitro. And my youngest daughter is adopted from Ethiopia. She's the baby. So we had 6 kids. I was working as an ER nurse, and I was taking care of my dad. My 2 siblings don't live in Dallas-Fort Worth, so I was kind of helping take care of him while he had his terminal illness. And so all I knew how to do was take care of other people. I thought it was selfish to do anything for myself. Self-care was not even in my vocabulary. I never heard of it, didn't think it was applied to me. And I'm a type A, I'm a doer. I like to be busy. I like to have my little checklists and stuff. But little did I know it would be my demise, not doing anything for myself, or even taking a moment to be mindful and see what was going on in my head, in my life. I did CrossFit for about a minute, tore my rotator cuff and had to have surgery. And I think you guys know where this story is going to go. I'm not going to spend very long on the train wreck of what my life was when I was in active addiction. because I like to spend more time talking about the solution of it. But I got hooked on painkillers. I had never abused them, was never setting out to abuse those after surgery. What I noticed is that they started making life a little bit more fun. I was cooking like 4-course meals and like scrubbing baseboards and like just loving it, just having so much fun. As y'all, if you haven't noticed already, I'm like a 0 to 200 person. I did that in addiction, and I do it now in recovery, but it took me about 9 months, 10 months before I checked myself into treatment. Not a person in my life knew what was going on. This was before they had changed hydrocodone to a Schedule II, so it was a lot easier to get. I had a husband who could prescribe. Seriously, I was seeking out pain management doctors. I'm a nurse. I knew what to say. Nobody would have ever guessed that I would be doing this. So I was taking hydrocodone and, just living the dream. And then about 4 weeks before I went to treatment, don't even ask me where this came from. I had the bright idea, we waste so many narcotics in the ER. Started taking home the wasted medication and injecting. The first time I did it, I knew I was completely screwed because I loved it and I knew the pills would never be enough. And it was just a couple weeks later that I went to treatment. And I knew I was going to get in major trouble, like with the DEA, federal level stuff. So went to treatment, and that was my first introduction to the 12 steps, which is the fellowship that I attend back home. And this was a key moment for me because I did not learn about addiction being the disease model of addiction. I grew up with the same mentality that a lot of people have, that it's a moral failing, that it's a lack of willpower. I firmly believed that all of those years in the ER. I never treated people different, but I definitely was judging them up here, for sure. Like, why don't they just stop? Like, they have a husband, they have a job, they have kids. How do you not stop using for your kids? Like, I just could not understand that. So, just totally lost my train of thought. What was I just talking about? My mind just went.
How did you make that transition? Checked yourself in.
Checked myself into treatment. Thank you. So yeah, I'm so nervous, y'all. I get so nervous speaking. So I'm just gonna throw that out there and just full transparency. So yeah, I went to treatment, and I did not believe it was a disease when I went there. And the medical director did a 2-hour lecture on neuroplasticity and the biological makings of addiction in the brain, and it was revolutionizing for me and my understanding. It's the first time that I felt not crazy, not completely off my rocker, because I could not understand how this happened to me in my 30s with no history of sexual abuse or trauma or anything that I can even blame it on. I just loved the feeling of taking pills, This doctor, Dr. Brian Davis is his name, and we're friends to this day. He's the one that did the lecture, and it was just an amazing moment for me because it's the first time that I actually felt like, oh, wow, I have an illness that I can actually treat. But I don't have a cure for it, and I'm real quick to tell people that at work, but we can arrest it. And the life that it gives is just like, it's beyond anything that I've ever experienced before. So that was a pivotal moment because, yeah, I didn't feel sick anymore. I felt like, oh, there's something I can do about this. So that is my original clean date back in 2014 from opiates. And I worked a 12-step model and went back to work, and I had self-reported to Texas's version of monitoring, which is TPAPN, Texas Peer Assistance Program for Nurses. And you guys will love this. I got about a month away from my 3 years being up, and I thought I could have a glass of wine. Totally knew I was an addict, and I do use that term. I'm comfortable with that term today, but I definitely knew I was an addict, but I had never even blacked out in my life. I was a very normal drinker up until my 30s when all this went down. So yeah, a month shy, can you believe that, of completing my monitoring, the anonymous program that I was in, and had that wine, and things did not go well for me after that. It took about 6 weeks to go from a glass of wine to binging on a liter of vodka a day. And in about 18 months, my husband divorced me. I temporarily lost custody of my kids, and I surrendered my nursing license because I could not stay sober enough to do anything. not to get my kids, not to go to work, like debilitating. When I tell you that alcohol took me out, like 10 times worse than what the pills were. And if you're in recovery and your experience was different, please don't look for the differences, just the similarities, but that is how it went for me. And it just, I spiraled into, I had never been diagnosed with depression, anxiety, any other kind of mental health disorder. And I spiraled very, very quickly. I was not one of these people that was going to live to have cirrhosis in my 60s or 70s. I was going to die of acute alcohol poisoning. I think my last BAC at the last ER visit, because there were many, at places that I worked and knew all the nurses and doctors, which was awesome, was like a 0.45. And for those of y'all that don't know, a 0.35 starts comatose in death for normal people. So, and I was functioning. Your tolerance for somebody that, is the real deal in this, it's very, very scary how quickly you can spiral down. So, yeah, it just took about 18 months. And my last drinking episode, I'm not going to get into, but I will tell you, I woke up in another state with no memory of how I got there, with 3 days of complete blackout that I had no idea what happened, an almost broken ankle that don't know how that happened, with bottles all over the floor. Thought I was supposed to be in California, and this is like 6 a.m, and I walk outside to find a gas station to get wine so I can feel better enough to get to an airport to go home, and realized I was in Arizona. I pieced together from talking to people what happened, but if you guys want to talk about pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization, that was the moment that happened. That was my life. At this point, everyone had walked away. My kids wanted nothing to do with me. None of my family wanted anything to do with me. At this point, I had started going back to my fellowship, and those people started walking away, and not in an unloving way, but they were like, you know what, Natalie, we love you to death, but we're not going to watch you kill yourself. You're toxic. You call us like once a week at midnight, drunk, saying you can't do this anymore, but we see no action behind that. So when you're ready, we'll be here, but we can't do this anymore. So it was the ultimate loneliness there in the end. So that was April of 2020. Liquor stores were essential, but 12-step programs were not. So I did a lot of Zoom. You guys know why that is, by the way. I'm sure a lot of you do if you're in nursing school. The hospitals were just so overwhelmed with people that even if people were not alcohol use disorder, but they were physically dependent on it, you guys know you can die from alcohol and benzo withdrawal, they would have overwhelmed the ERs to the point that they could not, they already couldn't handle it, So that's kind of why they were essential, just to get through that period. But I jumped into recovery like my life depended on it, because it absolutely did. And I am convinced to this day that if I go back out, it's not going to go well, and I will probably end up dead. I have a friend that just got out of the hospital about 2 months ago who was 3.5 years sober and lost his job and went back out. And it took them 9 days to wean him off the vent in the ICU. And I literally thought he was going to die. And I'm like, that would be me if I go out again. So I'm very passionate about recovery today because of that, because it is life or death for me. And I know it's life or death for other people. And I've been to way more funerals in the last 5.5 years than I have seen people get lasting sobriety. So I'm really grateful, and don't waste that opportunity that I feel like I've been given, because I could have died too. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about the disease model. So has anyone heard this concept of the disease model of addiction? So, you have the reward center of your brain, the amygdala, the nucleus accumbens, and we're not going to get too much into it, but basically, I couldn't understand in the beginning why people did the things that they did in active addiction that they would never do sober. And then I experienced that, because I turned into everything that I hated when I was in active addiction. And so basically, it hijacks the reward center of your brain. And y'all know Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So that's where it goes, is to the water, the shelter, the sex, the procreation, the really important stuff. That's where that likes to live. And that's why, those of y'all that are in recovery get it. But in active addiction, when you need what you need, you're willing to go to any lengths to get it. That's why people steal and, compromise their morals and all kinds of crazy stuff that they wouldn't typically do. So there's some really great resources on this, so I'm not going to get too much into it, but this is probably the number one thing that drives stigma, I think, in just society in general, is not understanding this. They do think it's a moral failing or a lack of willpower. I am here to tell you, if it was a willpower issue, I would not be here, standing here talking to you guys. My willpower took me a long way in life until this happened. Everything that had ever come my way, challenges, I was able to rise above them and get on with it. That's why I was crazy by the time I ended up in treatment, because I just couldn't figure this out. I had all the head knowledge. I had watched people die of this for 15 years. I have 3 kids that I love. I would die for them. Today I would die for them. Couldn't stop drinking for them. And to this day, my family doesn't get that. They'll never understand, you know? But I tell you what, I tell people, I introduce myself as a grateful, recovered alcoholic. I used to hate that when I first got into recovery, but there's a reason for that, because I was not grateful to be an alcoholic initially. But the reason today that I feel that way is because the work that I've done, the introspective, deep work in recovery, nothing would have ever pushed me to do that work except for this. Nothing would have gotten my attention in the way that this did. Pointed out how selfish I was, how much I judged other people, how much I tried to control every person, place, and situation in my life, how obsessed I was with caring about what other people thought about me, things that really caused struggles in my life that I didn't even see. They were total blind spots. So I'm really grateful for that work today. And I tell people all the time, I wouldn't even go back to my life before addiction happened. And I was in my mid-30s before it did. Spent most of my adult life as a not alcoholic addict. But I really mean that. I feel like I grew up and learned who I was for the first time at 40. That's when I got sober. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. I would not go back. So let's move on. You guys will love more statistics on this. So active nurses with licenses in Texas, 426,667. That makes up 6.2% of the US population of nurses. There's only approximately 1,100 in our monitoring program, so you do the math. 0.25%. So the National Council of State Boards of Nursing estimates that our addiction rates are between 14 and 20%. 10% is the general population. How many nurses you think are struggling with this and too scared to speak up? Here's Virginia. I can't exclude you guys. 123,471 nurses, makes up 2.1% of the US, and about 349 in y'all's program currently. There's a lot of people out there practicing that are too scared to speak up. They're struggling. They don't know what to do. They feel alone. And it's a scary place to be, and I get it. But things have changed a lot since I started out, in the program. And most people in safety-sensitive positions, so physicians, nurses, pharmacists, pilots, anybody that has to deal with the public and have their safety in their best interest, we have a whole different set of rules, and most of us have to get in a lot of trouble and have really bad things happen before we're willing to speak up. And that is part of my purpose of being here today, is being open with my story, because like she said, it does not have to be that way. It is a lot less punitive than it used to be. And really, I have come to a place where I'm very grateful that there was a program at all. I know the gentleman that founded TPAPN with a couple other people back in the 80s. His name's Leonard Cassie. He's an amazing guy. He didn't have a program when he got in. He's got a crazy story, and he got his license back and became an LCDC and completely changed the landscape for nurses in recovery in the state of Texas. It's just amazing. So people are struggling, but they're not speaking up, and it can be a different way. Here's a few statistics, few more statistics. So $4 trillion last year is what the opioid epidemic cost this country. That's lost lives, that's healthcare, that's lost wages for people not being able to go to work. I mean, it's just, fentanyl was a game changer. You guys already know that. I graduated nursing school when OxyContin hit the market, when, pain is the fifth vital sign. And I tell you what, when those documentaries came out, it really affected me because that was the time that I graduated and I watched us create the opioid epidemic. I watched hydrocodone go to Schedule II in, I think, 2013. And then here comes heroin again. And then here comes fentanyl. And then here comes xylazine. It's just insane. Something has to be done about it. 4 million ER visits a year for for alcohol use. Alcohol is the one that people don't like to talk about. It's the worst one. The people with the chronic health conditions, and COVID decimated this. It's 10 times worse now. I'm seeing 32-year-olds in full-blown cirrhosis, esophageal varices, alcoholic encephalopathy and hepatitis, Wernicke-Korsakoff, which is the wet brain syndrome. A lot of younger people are getting that. Nobody wants to talk about it because nobody wants to quit drinking, But it's really, really sad what's happening. More than 3,900 deaths each year in Virginia from alcohol, and 13,700 in Texas. And the excessive drinking, I told y'all 4 trillion for the opiates, 18.8 billion for alcohol. It's a very expensive problem, so I'm not sure why we're doing a lot more reaction than we are proactive work. So that is my husband. The reason he is up there, he is a pilot for American Airlines, and he will have 8 years sober on November the 4th of this year. I think that's right. Yeah, that's right. So yeah, he does the same stuff for the FAA and pilots that Kate and I do for nursing, which is amazing. The HIMSS program is what it's called for aviation for pilots. And obviously that's safety sensitive. So he leads a peer support group. He's a peer lead in Dallas-Fort Worth and helps the new guys get integrated in after they get out of treatment. They have all the mandated treatment requirements and stuff like that they have to do. But it's the same thing that I'm talking about, that lived experience, talking to somebody that's been through it. Having someone tell you, my life is not over today, just because I am in a monitoring program or living in recovery. And sometimes it feels like that. Sometimes you feel very alone. Especially when you have ongoing criticisms from society, from family, from people that just don't understand. So this peer support with lived experience is extremely important. And then on the right-hand side, I just kind of hit on this because the ASAM criteria for safety-sensitive professionals, they actually have a whole document on how they advise people, employers, I guess, to get somebody in treatment and get them the help that they need. There's a lot of professional tracks. I went to one when I met Dr. Davis in the hill country of Texas. And the other thing too is these smaller groups with your peers, there are things talked about that they wouldn't even talk about in a regular recovery, like a 12-step meeting, because the public, would not, they'd be too scared to go fly planes or, go to the ER if they knew some of this stuff. So it's really important work. It's kind of like new on the horizon as far as like what's available. This was not something that was really out there when all of my issues started. So I do lead a nurse recovery group in Texas, and this is through, like I said, the HIMSS stuff is what he does. There's the same thing. There's the caduceus groups for physicians. The attorneys have their own stuff, all of the LCDCs and LPCs and LMSWs, they have support groups as well. So it's really important work. I'm not going to go through all of these, but these are just some of the benefits of peer support and lived experience. Yeah, peer support stuff is kind of pretty much everywhere now. If you guys are in recovery, I really encourage you to be a part of it. I don't know about you guys, but for me, the crux of my program today is giving back. And what I do professionally, I don't get to count. What I get paid to do, I don't get to count as my giving back. So what are some ways that we can take action? I'm not gonna hit on the language too much either. Kate talked about that quite a bit, but it is important to know some of these things. If you guys have no experience with this, like I said, you're gonna encounter this in your professional life. You're gonna encounter patients struggling with it. Engage in conversations about it. Listen, this says emphatically. Did I put that? Maybe I meant empathetically, but also emphatically. Educate yourself and others. This is a big one for me because I had to learn the hard way. Man, I had to learn like the old school way on my own. So that I'm real passionate about educating people today and having these conversations. Respond with curiosity, not judgment. To this day, I will tell somebody I don't drink or that I'm in recovery. And some people, it gets real uncomfortable for people. And I just try to like play it off, lighthearted, like, it's all good. There's bars opening up with mocktails everywhere, and it's normalizing in society. It's taking a minute, but we're doing better. So these are my 3 kids, by the way. I got married last year. I said I was never doing that again, by the way, but I did. I did. And so this is my youngest daughter. Her name is Sarai, Isabella, and Severin. And this kid's like 6'3", y'all. Like, I can't even deal with him. He's 16 and he's like super tall. They're a big part of my why. Have y'all ever heard to know your why? Why do you do stuff? Why do you want to become a nurse? Why do you want to speak in front of people about recovery and healthcare professionals? So it's real important to find your why statement, because there's going to be difficult days that are going to come, no matter what field you're going into, what specialty. You're going to need that why on those difficult days, I promise you. It'll keep you grounded. The kids are a big part of my why, and because I want to see change. I want to see change in this. I want to see people have a much easier time than I did when I started out in this thing. I want to educate people. I want people to treat substance use disorders like they would any other chronic illness. Do you think I shame somebody for coming in the ER for being in diabetic ketoacidosis because they ate too much cake? I don't shame them for that. They know what they're supposed to be eating. Or they didn't feel like taking their blood pressure medicine. They come in hypertensive crisis, almost stroke out. I don't shame them for that. So why are we being shamed? It's a chronic illness. The statistics are there. People are recovering. The ability to arrest this disease is available to anybody who wants it. So yeah, that's just a big part of my why. Professional growth for me, like she said, I do peer support work with TPAPN, and here's the craziest story. When I started off in TPAPN, I was a problem child. I just did not like to do things by the book. My case manager had probably had about enough of me. And about 6 months ago, the program director for TPAPN reached out to me. I've never met this lady, I don't even know her name, and asked me personally to apply for the advisory committee. And not a year before, when I was up in Wyoming for my wedding, I was talking to one of my friends who was there in recovery, a nurse, about how we can affect change. How can we, I don't know how to do policy and lobby and all this kind of stuff, to change things, to make it better for nurses. And lo and behold, this lady calls me out of the blue and asks me to apply. She's strongly encouraged, and they appointed me to that board. So for the next 2 years, they're bringing people with lived experience onto this committee to affect change for the current participants and the future participants, to make this a more, friendly environment so that more people will ask for help. There's 9 of us on the committee, 3 of us we have been through it. That's huge for this, that they have enough value in people with lived experience going through this, that they care enough about us to, have a say in this. So it's amazing. That is just a little flyer for my nurse recovery group. You can't really see the numbers, don't worry about that. But I started this about 6 months ago just to fill a need. We don't really have a lot of support groups. The caduceus groups won't let us in Texas. We have to sign our name with blood or something, but they just want physicians. They don't want nurses. So I'm really proud of that. And Kate has visited, and I've visited her group, and it's a really great thing that we're doing. But I, of course, knew this was going to happen and totally ran out of time, but I want to do Q&A. Are we out of time for Q&A too? Oh, you were building that in. See, that's why I need Kate in my life. She keeps me on track. So any questions on anything?
You can repeat the questions. We've got about 55 people online too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I saw that you went to a Christian college, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me,
2 of them.
tell me how that play a role in your, when you speak in.
Those are my dogs, by the way, y'all.
Try now. How does the Christian college, you said you went to 2, how does that play a role in your recovery, or if or not, or?
Yeah, so I went to Pepperdine. That's where my first undergrad degree is from. I actually went on a Christian scholarship. It's a Church of Christ university. That's what I grew up in. And I'll be real open. Don't go to organized religion today. I have nothing against it. But it almost made it more difficult for me personally. And I'll tell you why. First of all, I had a kid my senior year at Pepperdine that did not go over well for somebody that was on Christian scholarship to have an unwed person having a baby. But we made through it. But getting into recovery, my 12-step fellowship is you have to find a power greater than yourself. And it doesn't have to be the Christian God I grew up in or, any of that type of stuff. The reason it made it difficult for me personally is I had a lot of preconceived notions I had to let go of. I was very much a rule follower. I was very much told at a young age what I was going to hell for and what I needed to do to not go to hell. And so I pretty much thought I was going to hell from a pretty young age for some of the stuff I was doing. So getting into recovery, and I work a 12-step model where the first 3 steps are a lot about just like believing that your higher power can do something and that we can't do it with self-will. So I just kind of skipped over those. And as I was also taught as a child that you just pray for what you need or want, and it will be given to you. So I did that and almost died for about 2.5 years, on my knees every morning, begging my higher power to take this affliction away. I knew I was gonna die. It had stopped being fun a very long time ago, and it did not happen. I did not get better until I did the things that I was capable of doing, which was go on with the rest of the steps. And specifically for me in 4 through 9 is where the spiritual experience happened. The obsession to drink and use lifted. And I can genuinely tell you, I have not had a craving to drink since about 6 weeks sober. Genuinely. I see it. I'm around it all the time. I give narcotics in the ER that I used to steal and abuse. I know this program works for me because that is proof positive. I have not thought about taking a drink since about 6 weeks sober. So does that kind of roundabout answer your question?
Yeah.
Spirituality is a big part of my life today, and I have a stronger relationship than I ever have with what my higher power is. That did not come through church for me. That came through the recovery rooms and hearing my higher power speak through other people. Yeah. You're welcome. Are you gonna, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
So as a new nurse, this year, what I'm
Woo! It's the new 20.
doing great.
Oh, and I didn't repeat the question. Go ahead.
It's okay. It's a one.
So you're a new nurse.
So I just turned 40 this year.
You just turned 40.
I'm like halfway through 40. In my first year of practice, I work in behavioral health at Richmond Community Hospital, graduated from VCU School of Nursing last December, and really wanted to work in behavioral health and psych because I'm sober and I see a huge need. So my question for you would be, as somebody who's working in a system with a lot of insensitive nurses, sadly, nurses working in behavioral health, who carry so much of the stigma, whether it's through just doing it day in and day out, doing it in corrections, doing it at state psychiatric facilities, and obviously in a community hospital where we have a lot of readmissions, people who are unwilling that come in chronically homeless. How can I affect change in that environment? Because it is exhausting. It steals from my ability to be empathetic with my patients because it is so difficult working with coworkers who just are not operating from the same place of understanding, really.
Yeah, so do I need to repeat that? Is it? Okay, cool. So for me, I say all the time, it is so difficult to work in behavioral health care when you're someone who really cares. When you care deeply about these issues, it does make it difficult. And if I think about like the whole big picture of it, it can be very overwhelming. I have to just keep my bubble in what do I have control over? What can I do about this? So my answer to that would be, first of all, people are gonna do what they are able to get away with. So if leadership is allowing this kind of toxicity to persist, and it's everywhere, it's a problem everywhere, I would recommend going up the chain of command and talking to your management about it. Let them know how it's affecting you. If there are ways that you can be involved in services of any type. So for instance, in Plano, where I was working in the ER, I would do in-services regularly on how to properly do a CEWA on alcohol withdrawal patients because they didn't even understand how to really do. The doctors didn't even really understand how to do it. They didn't know that the Ativan would even correlate with the CIWA score. So any opportunity I could to get in and do like an in-service on something, any kind of education, I bet the people here could find more ways than you would want to get involved in stuff like that. And tangible ways that you can really bring this back to your organization. A big one is speaking up, and a lot of people don't want to do this, but it's funny, everybody in the last ER I worked at knew I'm in recovery. They will sit on either side of me and talk smack about these patients as if I'm not standing right there. I'm at a point in my life that I'm gonna call them out on it in a respectful way. Hey, like, they've been here a couple times before, like, big deal. Like, you get this as a chronic disease. Like, they deserve the care that we give anybody else that walks in here. So, yeah, I don't know. Recovery has given me that voice today where I might have been too timid to say something in the past. But let me think on that too. If you're going to stick around, we'll brainstorm some ideas together as well. But I appreciate your desire to want to do that. And congrats on turning 40 and becoming a nurse.
That was a great question.
Man, I'm telling you, I got sober at 40 and I've loved it. Yes, ma'am. Oh, sorry.
Just one. This is sort of a follow-up question, actually. First of all, thank you so much for coming and sharing your life story and experience and perspective. I think testimony is a really powerful tool to spread education and empathy. I'm not a person that considers myself to be in recovery, but this is an issue that I care a lot about. And I'm actually in my last year in the medical school. But I was curious about what your experience coming back from like the recovery programs and integrating back into the clinical environment was like, and if there are things that colleagues who maybe aren't in the process of recovery can do in supporting that transition. Because I imagine that was a really difficult time for you that presented challenges I can't even fathom.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you.
Man, first of all, thank you for being here and even asking that question. Like, that gives me so much hope to hear that medical students you're even considering this. That's amazing. It was difficult coming back. So Kate was kind of talking about, the TPAPN and the YALS monitoring program, Alternative to Discipline, is anonymous. Like I said, was the problem child and ended up on a board order. So at 5.5 years sober and for the rest of my life, it is public on the Board of Nursing. I do not agree with that, and that is something I plan on trying to work on. Not that I will do that, but because it's persistent shame and stigma, and people still look it up at 5.5 years sober, and all the stuff that I've done in the last 5.5 years, and that's what they'll hone in on. It's almost like I have a felony. I've never even been arrested, but that follows me around like a felony would. I can't get rid of it. My family has looked it up and spread it out to people. It's just, it does nothing to help the situation. So chances are, if people are coming back to work in y'all's version of our Alternative to Discipline, you may not even know. If they're not open, and I totally respect, I wouldn't have been open either if mine wasn't public, because theirs goes away at the end of the monitoring term. It's like completely expunged. So other than if you notice that there are restrictions, like typically a lot of nurses can't give narcotics for the first 6 months, they can't work critical care, no rotating shifts, no overtime, no, stuff like that. And usually they'll just get maybe one person that will be their designated person to pass narcotics or whatever. So chances are you may not even totally know. But if you do, it sounds so simple, but just don't be weird about it. Don't be weird about it. Like, people just don't know what to do. Like, when I tell people I'm sober, I'm in recovery, I'm telling you, they don't know what to do. It makes people uncomfortable. And all I'm trying to do is just normalize it. Like, I'm just here to do my job. Like, it's all good. And that's why it's so important to me to have people see me being a contributing member of society, a contributing member of the nursing world, to be capable of doing those things. I'm in recovery, yeah. Yeah, I did some terrible things, but it's not who I am. It's not my identity. Sharing with your coworkers, if you, like I was telling him, hearing people speak up about things in a negative way. Do you know what your specialty is going to be? Really? Look at you. I love this. I just am here for all of this. That's really amazing. Because I was going to say ER people we're the worst. We're the worst because we we are very unlovely creatures in our active addiction. We are. I have had people, pee on the floor and call me every name in the book. And I had an HIV positive patient sling an IV in my face and blood on my face. And we're unlovely in active addiction. I don't know what to tell you, but man, we are worth the same level of care, the same empathy as anybody else. And let me tell you something, those patients, if you take 2 or 3 minutes to sit and get at their eye level and talk to them and make them feel like a human being that is worthy of being there, your day will go a whole lot different 95% of the time. 95, there's always those outliers, right? But most of them just want to feel heard. You know how many people don't even go back to the ER because they're humiliated, they're embarrassed, I can't believe I'm here again. We just have a lot of education to do. Not being afraid to stand up and say something, I think, is a big one. I don't know, real quick, if y'all have heard of The Anonymous People, it's a film that came out about 10, 11, 12 years ago. Have y'all heard of it? They talk a lot about VCU and what y'all are doing in Richmond, so I guarantee you should watch it. This whole film is talking about the concept of the anonymity of people in 12-step-based fellowships versus if we never are willing to be open with our story, if we're never willing to tell people that we can and do recover and be open with all of it, then how will stigma ever change? How will anyone even know who's in recovery? Who was ever, they know who's an addict in active addiction, but how will they even know that we're capable of change? I get told all the time, you don't look like an alcoholic. You don't look like you'd be an IV drug user. I was. You definitely didn't see me at 40 years old when I was detoxing at home by myself in my apartment with nobody that cared anything about what I was doing. Yeah, I fit the bill back then. But people need to see that. And that's why I'm so passionate about this, is just being open with my story. And because recovery's given me the ability to not be ashamed of any of it today. Took me a while to get there. But man, I'm comfortable with who I am today. I know I'm a good person today. I know I am trying to not intentionally create harm in other people's lives and actively trying to do the right thing in all areas of my life. So, I don't know if I answered your question, but I really appreciate it, and I appreciate what you're doing. So thank you.
So we're at time, but I think we could probably keep going if people have questions. I know that you had a question.
Basic, simple question. You're a very busy woman. You're here, you're there, you're teaching, you're doing this, that, and the other. Do you sponsor?
I do. So I appreciate your question too. I said earlier, I do not count any of my professional work as step 12. If you're familiar with the 12-step model, I can't do that. I get paid for it. I sponsor 4 women right now. I don't just take all the new ones on that need to go through the steps, because I'm a pretty hardcore sponsor. I tell people the truth in a loving way, because it's the most loving thing that anyone ever did for me, was call me out and show me where my blind spots were. And if somebody's not ready, I'm not going to take offense from that. They're just not ready. I wasn't ready for a long time too. If someone's ready though, I will get them through the work quickly. But I can't just take on everybody at one time. But I do feel like what I'm trying to do professionally, this changed the whole trajectory of my career. I didn't see myself going to psych NP school. Man, I feel like I have a unique opportunity that I cannot waste as far as a professional sense goes, because of my experience and because of my lived experience. But in my personal life, I practice those principles in every area of my life. You will not see inconsistencies with who I am at work versus who I am in a meeting versus who I am with my husband and my kids, that kind of stuff. So I do sponsor women, and I still take meetings to treatment centers. Yeah.
I have a quick question
Ooh.
before we close up.
Yeah.
If you had a nurse or a nursing student come to you after this and say, I'm struggling with drinking, or I'm misusing my prescription and I don't know what to do, what advice would you give them?
Oh, that's a big one. So I would have a conversation and just kind of, if they were willing to open up and explore a little bit more, I would ask them if they feel good about their current healthcare provider, because I do think it is important to have an open and honest dialogue with them about your use. I remember when I went to treatment, I had to write a letter to the pain management doctor that I was getting pills from and tell him what was going on. But to be honest with healthcare providers, I would discuss what options are available as far as resources that are not specifically in healthcare, so support groups. I tell people all the time today too, try everything. We are so lucky to have the resources available to us. We have, in Dallas anyway, we have meetings on every corner like we have Starbucks or McDonald's. I mean, they're everywhere. And the second time I went to treatment, I went up in Montana where there's 1 million people, but it's the 4th largest state. And some of those people had to drive 200 miles to the closest meeting. And so we're really, really lucky. So try them all and see what works for you. If they are a licensed person, I'm going to point them in the direction of, support groups for that as well. But sitting in silence and not talking to anyone about this is not going to fix the problem. I know because I tried. It usually ends up really, really badly. And a big part of it for me too is even having a discussion, which this kind of blends my professional experience with my fellowship that I attend, but qualifying somebody where they're even at with this. Like there are a lot of people out there that that look like they may be alcoholic or addict that are just heavy users. And given the right set of circumstances or push or nudge, like a judge or a spouse or a job, they're able to moderate or quit, even if they have to do medical detox. But for a percentage of us otherwise, you can throw everything at them in the world and it's not gonna, love is not enough, your children are not enough. So those are the ones that I'm going to be concerned with as far as, talking about treatment, talking about getting real and honest with themselves, because that is the first step, and pointing them to whatever resources are at my disposal for support. Yeah. Thank you, guys.
I love that answer.
I had to throw that in there. So I'm a crazy pug person. Saw the pug. I just saw that and couldn't resist. So,
So let's all give Natalie one more round of applause.
thank you guys.